the Morning Five on Friday, December 12th, 2014. I am Dave Biddle, and I'm joined by Duane Long. Duane, I want to start off talking about the J.T. Barrett situation. I'm sure a lot of the listeners are wondering about it. Here's my take. It is obvious to me that the cops did not believe the young lady's story. Think about it. If a pregnant girl was choked and thrown across the room and the cops believed her story, J.T. Barrett would have been arrested, period. There were no arrests, no charges filed, nothing. Again, there's no conceivable way, in my opinion, that the police bought her story. One more time, she said she was pregnant, was thrown across the room. If they believed her story even a little bit, JT would have been taken to the station that night in handcuffs. He wasn't. In fact, JT was the first one to call 911, and he said he wanted the girl to leave. Then she called 911 and came up with a story on the fly, in my opinion, one that the cops did not believe. That's my take. Duane, what is yours?
Well, I would add, I don't know how a guy with a broken ankle throws anybody across the room. I mean,
True.
You know, it's just, he's got a broken ankle. He manages to throw the girl across the room. She gets no bruises after being thrown across the room. No marks, no visible marks, and the cops make absolutely sure they check this because it's the law. And I like the law. I want it that way. Don't put your hands on girls like that. And if there's a mark, you got to go to jail, man. Eventually you'll learn to stop putting your hands on women like that. Absolutely agree with that law. They don't take them to jail. They don't even file charges against them. They give both of them a summons. Okay, you guys want to file charges against each other? Knock yourselves out. Nothing happens. He's the one that calls the cops. Now, I don't know about you, Dave, but if I just assaulted somebody, the last thing I'm going to do is pick up the phone and call the cops. None of this makes any sense as far as, that he assaulted this girl. It didn't happen. He wanted her to leave. She wouldn't leave, and this situation exploded. Okay, it's over. We need to move on from this one. Stop trying to make him into some kind of, another lawbreaker. He didn't do anything. This situation got a little out of hand. And he did the right thing. He did exactly what you'd want him to do. The only thing I would suggest is actually leave the apartment. That's the one thing I would say you do. Leave, then take your phone and call the cops. That's the only thing I would actually say that next time if something like this happens, just leave. So you don't even have a situation where, you're even in the same area with the girl. But, yeah, none of it makes sense from the point of view that he assaulted her.
Exactly, Duane. And a lot of fans have wondered, well, is JT going to be suspended to start the 2015 season? Because Carlos Hyde was suspended, and he really didn't do much. Carlos Hyde actually, kind of whatever you want to make of that grainy film, at least made contact with a girl. And, it obviously wasn't as bad as people thought, but you could say he playfully slapped her, or whatever you want to say Carlos Hyde did. I don't think JT Barrett's going to be suspended at all. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Urban Meyer's going to do something. But I seriously doubt it. Again, the authorities didn't believe her story. I'm sure Urban Meyer doesn't believe her story if that's the case. So my take is JT Barrett will not be suspended next year at all. Moving on, breaking news this morning. Paul Chryst has been hired at Wisconsin to replace Gary Anderson. Paul Chryst, former Wisconsin offensive coordinator, was the head coach at Pitt for 3 years. Kind of modest results, Duane. He was 6-7 his first year, 7-6 last year, and 6-6 this year at Pitt. So not exactly setting the world on fire at Pitt, but then again, it's kind of hard to set the world on fire at Pitt. Duane, your thoughts about Paul Chryst going back to Wisconsin, this time as head coach?
Well, I think it's fortunate for him. He goes back to something familiar, and with that record, what was his chances of being extended? He's not doing anything, and there is an opportunity in Pennsylvania, in the state of Pennsylvania. There's enough talent base, there's enough talent base in the state that Pitt and Penn State should be able to produce better than that. It's not what it used to be. Pennsylvania is definitely not the recruiting ground that it used to be, but it's still good enough. And he just wasn't getting it done. He was way down the pecking order as far as recruits were concerned. Ohio State went and taking out the top kids too often. Penn State was getting a few, Michigan's getting a few. That was just not in Pitt's best interest. He was not recruiting well enough. So I wonder if he was going to be extended. This comes along at the right time. He goes home with something familiar. He's got an athletic director that's probably going to be the best recruiter on any staff he's going to have. that's going to help them recruit those kind of players and that actually fit that Wisconsin system. It's a good move for both. I think both are going to thrive with this. He was a guy there that was effective running that kind of offense that Barry Alvarez seems to be insisting that they run. And maybe Barry Alvarez is right. I just don't think he should be forcing this on a coach as you run my system. If you want to do that, get on back down the field, dude. But it does fit. It was just everything coming together at the right time, and it works out for Wisconsin. And they get a coach back on staff right away, so they can go right back to recruiting. They don't have to, and it's familiar. He doesn't have to get to know people. He can just fire right back into it.
Barry Alvarez says this is the third head coach he's had to hire. He doesn't want to go to a fourth. He wants this to be it. So I think Barry Alvarez is confident that Paul Chryst is going to be at Wisconsin for many years. So we'll see how. I mean, it's been quite the change there. I mean, they're going now 3 coaches in the last 4 years at Wisconsin. Whoever saw that coming? But we'll see how Paul Chryst does in Madison. Next up, Duane, I want to talk about level of competition in high school, especially for running backs. Ohio State commitment Michael Weber played high school ball in Michigan at Cass Tech, which is, of course, one of the top programs in the state. Weber is ranked as one of the top 100 overall players in the country. But how was his level of competition? We saw Rod Smith tear up Indiana high school football a few years back. That didn't work out well. But we saw Ezekiel Elliott tear up Missouri high school football. That turned out extremely well for Ohio State. So, Duane, talk about Weber's game a little bit. Is level of competition in high school any concern of yours, or is he so good that it doesn't really matter? The reason I ask is competition in Michigan obviously pales in comparison to the level of competition in Ohio.
Well, I think you have to look at the states that get recruited the heaviest. They also have the highest level of competition in a high school game. It does matter. I think it matters more at certain positions. I think it matters more, especially at quarterback, more than any place at quarterback. But, I think Michigan football is a little bit underrated. Actually, I learned something about it. I looked at the number of guys coming out of high school where they played their high school ball who have ended up in the NFL. And Michigan has about half as many as Ohio, and that's not bad. It's not as bad as Indiana, and certainly not as bad as Kentucky, where everyone's talking about Damian Harris, and I'm watching him. It looks like a video game with him running against the level of competition we see in Kentucky. So I think it can be somewhat overblown, but for the most part, you have to look at where a guy played, what level, just like here in Ohio. When's the last time Ohio State recruited a player beyond, say, the Division III level? When you get down into that Division V, Division VI level, those kids don't really get recruited at schools like Ohio State. So there is something to it. I like that I had, for instance, of the running backs, I had L.J. Scott, who's committed to Michigan State at the top of my list, and Harris was number 2. His film is dazzling, but actually I can't say I don't like Weber as well because of that level of competition that we're talking about.
Great stuff out of Duane Long, as always. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you to all the listeners out there. I hope you have a great day and a great weekend. Take it away, best damn band in the land.